No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live, episode number 80. Wow. Please click subscribe and be part of our brand new independent news revolution. Turn on the notification bell too. Then you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Today, another astonishing Labour U-turn, but this one could end up bankrupting Britain. Breaking right now, Whitehall sources have told the Daily Mail that slippery Starmer could sign up to a Commonwealth summit communique that references slavery reparations, which he had previously taken off the table. Is it any wonder given the Foreign Secretary Loony Lammy's position on this matter?
I'm afraid, as Caribbean people, we are not going to forget our history. We don't just want to hear an apology, we want reparation.
No wonder Nigel Farage is furious.
For no slavery past. No, never. Now, there is an argument for reparations, obviously. I think the French, during the 100 Years' War, I think the raids into Kent and Sussex, the loss of so much. I mean, where do you stop with this?
No, never. In my digest, I argue Starmer and Lammy are going to destroy Britain, our economy, our culture, our free speech, everything. Then my special guests for today's show, the Bombshells, Fleur Elizabeth and Amy Jemima weigh in. Also coming up today, Rachel Thieves is now the CV cheat, revealed to be lying about her experience. So can we trust a word that the Chancellor says? And why is the MSM still silent on Keir Starmer's big secret? Then, in the uncancelled after show, P. Dina on disastrous news for Prince Harry with a shocking new twist in the bid to see him deported from the US for drug use. Register to watch it at www.outspoken.live. But now, let's go. If this is how much slippery Starmer and Loony Lammy have given away and conceded in less than 5 months, where the hell are we gonna be in 5 years? At this rate, there won't be any Great Britain or United Kingdom left. We'll just be a flattened, broke, woke and withering shadow of our once great empire. After initially talking tough on reparations and rebuffing all the ludicrous suggestions of paying anywhere from hundreds of billions to £18 trillion, literally our entire economy, today in Samoa, where King Charles is leading Choggum, a pathetic capitulation from Labour. So first this morning, the BBC reported Commonwealth heads of government are preparing to defy the UK and agree plans to examine reparatory justice for the transatlantic slave trade. The current text of the draft summit communique leaked to the BBC said this: heads, noting calls for discussions on reparatory justice with regard to the transatlantic trade and enslaved Africans, agreed that the time has come for a meaningful, truthful and respectful conversation towards forging a common future based on equity. The answer from the UK then and there should have been nope, never, hell no. But instead, within hours, we learn of an imminent capitulation. The Daily Mail's political editor Jason Groves posted on X, Whitehall source suggests Starmer could sign up to a Commonwealth summit communique that references slavery reparations, but says this would not necessarily mean there is a change of policy. Not necessarily. Okay. Goodness, we all know where this is going, so no wonder Farage furious today.
For no slavery past. No, never. Now, there is an argument for reparations, obviously. I think the French, during the 100 Years' War, I think the raids into Kent and Sussex, the loss of so much. I mean, where do you stop with this? Where do you stop with this? Do you go for reparations against the African black slave traders who sold the slaves to us in the first place? I mean, are we owed reparations from the Portuguese, Spanish, who carried on slaving, and we at a massive cost stopped them doing it? Look, if you give an inch on this, if Starmer shows any weakness on this, even if we might consider it, this will never go away. And I think I detect something going on here. The Chinese Communist Party have been doing their very best to chip away at the Commonwealth for quite some time. Barbados, Solomon Islands, etc. And I think some of these excessive demands, I think China's behind it. We must stand firm.
But it's no wonder we are where we are when we have a Foreign Secretary who literally said this.
I'm afraid, as Caribbean people, we are not going to forget our history. We don't just want to hear an apology, we want reparation.
Lammy and Starmer are betraying the British people. And I have to be brutally honest here, King Charles didn't help. He didn't help in Kenya last year, saying slavery was a, quote, conversation whose time has come. Why, Your Majesty? Your government ended it in 1833. And your current government insists we are now dead broke. Of course, this move will be celebrated by the dreadful, by the deceitful Prince Harry, by the awful Meghan Markle, who betrayed the legacy of the late Queen Elizabeth II by campaigning against the Commonwealth in their awful Netflix score-settling documentary, even though the late Queen Elizabeth II had given them the incredible role of trying to protect and preserve the Commonwealth. So shame on them. Shame on them for making this so much more difficult for Charles and William now. And it's all the more ironic, isn't it, given they live off inheritances from actual members of the British royal family. Are you going to be paying personal reparations, Prince Harry? Because if so, I'd like to see you give that $7 million you just got paid back. That $7 million that came from the late Queen Mother. I'd rather send the Commonwealth a message, though, from my friend Alex Phillips, who published this brilliant open letter on X today. Let me read it to you. Dear our friends in the Caribbean, we've had a look at history, and we can recommend that you ask for reparations from Benin, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria, Ghana, and Mali for capturing and selling slaves to Europeans. Meanwhile, given Britain led the way in ending slavery, spending an astonishing 40% of our entire national budget in 1833 to buy freedom for slaves and a further 2% of our GDP on the West African Squadron, which seized over 1,600 slave ships and freed 150,000 at a cost of 1,600 Royal Navy sailors, we would like you to thank us by offering to pay 40% of our annual budget this year and 2% of our GDP. That's £480 billion plus £11.4 billion. We can settle for £450 billion, if that's easier. We estimate this will be the size of Rachel Reeves' black hole next week. The invoice is in the post. Love Britain. But instead, Starmer and Lammy will equivocate and eventually capitulate, because that's what the woke really want to do. Destroy the West. Now it's time for the uncancelled interview. And I am absolutely delighted today to be joined by two bombshells. And they are quite literally bombshells, host of the brilliant podcast Bombshells, which is available to subscribe on YouTube, Fleur Elizabeth and Amy Jemima. So great to have you both here. So, Fleur, can you believe it? Starmer talked tough, and then immediately a capitulation on reparations, which could have dire consequences for us historically. Oh, sorry, Fleur, we're just struggling to hear you. Amy, do you want to take that?
I'm back.
Great, you're back.
Yeah,
Go,
unfortunately,
Fleur.
I can believe it, because the nightmare that's been this government, nothing's a surprise anymore. It's just every day you wake up and think, well, I'm starting to think, how have my fellow citizens voted this government in? Thankfully, I do not take any blame for this. I didn't even vote in the election. So, yeah, but just ahead of the budget when we're going to have huge tax rises, and I already hate how my taxes are being spent. And for them to be spent on paying historical reparations is just absolutely insane.
I know. And the thing is, obviously they lied, Amy, didn't they? They lied constantly during the campaign. However, we did know what they thought. People should have been sensible. I mean, there is Lammy literally saying, we owe the Caribbean reparations. And he's now Foreign Secretary. Oh, sorry, Amy, we're just losing you too. Hopefully we'll sort Amy's audio in 1 second. While we do that, though, this is what Richard Tice had to say about the reparations question.
Not a single penny in reparations. Because, look, the reality is, frankly, lots of other countries owe us.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the Royal Navy and the British taxpayer that stopped the slave trade over many years, about 170, 200 years ago, and we should be thanked for that. Not then said you've got to pay a bill. And there were vast legions of people along the way who made money out of the vile slave trade, including tribal leaders and rulers and kings in African countries. So let's just stop.
Amy, go for it.
Yes. Oh, I'm back. Great. Yeah, well, it's hardly a surprise seeing as the Tory party were seeming to be going down this route, but because Labour was always so much more ideologically invested in things like CRT and other ideologies that you can list, but it's just hardly a surprise that they were actually going to embed this stuff in law, and it hasn't taken them very long. I think Nigel Farage has been talking about this for so many years, since I think 5 years ago there was a big stink about sort of returning lands to become independent outside of our Commonwealth. So it's really, if you're going to start to give away stuff to nations as a whole, you've really got to start thinking about other countries that have sort of who are invested in those countries and have control over those. So you'll just be sort of giving everything back into things like China, I think. So you've got to be thinking about where things are going to go, how will things get redistributed, and to make other forces who aren't necessarily friendly more powerful against us.
Of course, and the thing is, it's such a slippery slope, isn't it? I'm just looking at Alison Pearson, my friend, the Daily Telegraph columnist Fleur on X, and she has just posted, if the UK pays reparations for slavery, I will campaign for compensation for the descendants of British child labourers. My beloved grandfather went down the mine aged 12. Like thousands of kids sent underground, he died early from lung cancer. Working class people did not benefit from white privilege. And of course, that is the reality, isn't it? If Britain were to be bankrupted today, it would be the working classes, the working people who suffered.
Yeah, well, I think Farage was completely right, and I think Alison makes a very funny point there. When does it stop? I mean, my ancestors came to the British Isles in 1575 because they were being persecuted for being Protestants in France. Am I asking the French for reparations? No, but if we're going to do this crazy stuff, I might as well. I feel like I pay enough in taxes. I might just try and get some back from any source that I can. But yeah, when does it stop? We've got all through history, different groups of people have wronged other different groups. And yeah, the Congo kings were selling their own citizens to the slave traders. So yeah, it's so messy. And also, no one was there to say who was really at fault, and no one alive today is responsible. So it's utterly insane. But like I say, nothing surprises me anymore, because I think everything that's happening right now is unbelievable and crazy.
No, but we did pay, though. That's the thing. And what's so frustrating is this idea that we should be punished again. Because let's just look at the actual facts here, Amy. So in 1833, we actually used 40% of our budget to buy the freedom of the slaves. Now, we had to borrow money to do that. It was all agreed through the Slavery Abolition Act, and we didn't actually pay it off until 2014. So actually, living British citizens today, you and me, and probably most people watching, have actually paid taxes to help end the slave trade already.
Yeah. And this is another thing that you just can't really quantify. So obviously in the last 600, 700 years, there have been awful things. It's like, welcome to the planet, welcome to humanity. Surprise, bad things gonna happen. But if you look at things like the amount of work or development that Britain has done for the rest of the world, and we've led engineering, mathematics, and all literature in so many ways.
We need to be
proud. In sort of industry.
Totally. I mean, in all seriousness, where would the world be without the British Empire? Seriously.
Yeah, and I think we're such a charitable country.
Yes.
So if you were going to then quantify, to contradict this, if you were going to quantify all the charity and the development that we've been part of in the rest of the world, well, I'd like to see that money back. I'd like to see our strategic development around the world be rewarded too. Thank you very much. So there's trade-offs to be had, and obviously I'm so proud to be British, less and less so now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm still proud to be British.
Of course, but the thing is, I think the reason you say less and less so now is because the people who are leading us are so clearly not proud to be British. They are so clearly embarrassed and ashamed of our history.
Or David Lammy, who just stood up and called himself Caribbean.
Yes.
Like, pick a side.
Or Narinder Kaur, who yesterday said that she's bitter and resentful that her parents moved here from India and actually she'd want to go back. I mean, it's really shocking what's happening. Fleur, what do you make of my little call to Prince Harry? Because remember, Prince Harry and Meghan did cause genuine damage over this, especially in the Caribbean. Like, I know that we look at their Netflix documentary and think, oh, you're pathetic. Do you know what I mean? But in the Caribbean, it was actually embraced by politicians. They have gone to visit Jamaica. They are personally close to the Jamaican Prime Minister. Obviously, that's one of the countries who are leading the calls for reparations. Well, shouldn't Prince Harry, rather than spend the £7 million that he's just received from the late Queen Mother's inheritance, why doesn't he put that into slavery reparations personally?
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is. I completely agree. I think if you are pro paying these reparations, dig into your pockets and pay it. But I know that I had nothing to do with it, and so I'd rather not. But it is very frustrating having Prince Harry, who has completely distanced himself from not only the royal family, but the UK, being this figurehead that other countries still see him as representing the UK, and going across that and they think, oh, this is the British perspective, when it's not. Like, they clearly hate this country. That's why they've left, and especially Meghan. So it's not right that he's taking on this role and being the voice for the British people when,
well, Amy, he's almost become
like
a pin-up for the Republican movement now, hasn't he? But again, it's so ironic given this is a guy who literally has had every privilege in life as a result of being a member of the British royal family.
Well, I think you can't overestimate his intelligence on this one, because you just
I never overestimate his intelligence, I promise you.
Well, yeah, on the whole, but on this, I don't think he could do the mental gymnastics to work out the irony for himself. And if he actually wants to recognise his own extent of privilege, then I think he would not be barking at the rate he does.
Exactly. He would be just keeping quiet about this he'd be shutting up about this, because you're so right. He is like the biggest hypocrite in the world. And I think, look, the thing is, you don't want to overestimate the importance of Harry and Meghan, but they had a direct impact, especially in the Caribbean. And the thing that makes me so upset about it is that the life's work of Queen Elizabeth II was establishing the Commonwealth. She gave them that special position to try and strengthen the Commonwealth bonds. And look at what they did. They trashed her, and it just makes me so angry. But look, breaking right now, Rachel Thieves, the Chancellor, has been exposed as a CV smear merchant. Now, my view on this is, if she's prepared to lie about her past, then surely she will also lie about the state of the economy. Here's what's gone down. Alex Armstrong posted, Rachel Reeves allegedly lied on her CV. Guido Fawkes has today claimed that the Chancellor has greatly exaggerated her position at HBOS. Reeves claimed she was an economist on her CV, but it turns out she may have only worked in the complaints team. That was a small support unit which managed administration processes, IT matters, and small projects. This comes as she has also been exposed for lying about being a chess champion when she actually placed 26th. So can you believe this? Let's look at the Guido Fawkes story itself, because they have done God's work on this. And they say Rachel Reeves makes a lot of her time working as an economist. And she says that she moved to work at the Bank of Scotland. She always uses this term economist, but Guido actually spoke to colleagues of Reeves from her Bank of England days, and one described her as having a reputation for being effing useless. Now, she's constantly praised for having an economist brain, and she speaks of her time at HBOS in the midst of the financial crisis. But Guido probed these claims after numerous former colleagues of Reeves got in touch to raise questions over her CV. So let's look at the CV. It's very, very clear. She states on her LinkedIn that she was working as an economist at HBOS. But Guido reports this is not true. Guido can reveal that Reeves worked in a mundane support department of the bank, according to multiple former colleagues. Within the Halifax HBOS complaints team, there was a small support unit which managed administration processes, IT matters, and small projects and planning. It was a team of 3 people, far from the economics department. Can you believe this? And it gets worse, folks. It gets worse, because Guido says Reeves has a tendency to be selective about the truth when it comes to her CV. Her chess champion myth is also a falsehood. Now, Guido reached out to the Reeves team. They did not deny she did not work as an economist for the bank, but instead said she covered various areas using her economist background. So let me bring the bombshells back in now. Fleur Elizabeth, I mean, given she's literally lying about the economy, lying about the reasons for there being a black hole, it seems quite significant to me that she lied this much on her CV. And this is the sort of story, Fleur, that if we were talking about a Conservative cabinet minister, certainly a Conservative Chancellor, it would be leading the MSM. They would be obsessed with it. There would be calls for her to resign. But instead, because it's their girl, because it's their woman, Rachel Reeves, there's radio silence about her past, which she has clearly lied about.
Yeah, I think you could say the same about Mariana Spring, who works as the misinformation girl at the BBC.
Where's she on this?
Well, no, so she lied on her CV, saying that she'd presented the Olympics or something. not quite like that, but she'd lied on her CV and then got this job as the misinformation girl.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're completely right. I remember that.
If it was this sort of alternative right-wing media and someone had lied about their background, the Eagles will be on them, like ripping them to shreds. I think it's very funny, this Rachel Reeves story, because, you know, you'll get like people graduating from university, maybe embellishing their CV a little bit. You know, they might have been the dishwasher in a restaurant, but they'll put that they were a waiter. But this, like, she's the Chancellor. Does she really need to be making stuff up to impress people at this point? I think what's unfortunate is she's clearly not as competent as we thought. Well, as some people thought. And people are always bigging her up as like, yes, the first female chancellor. Well, I would rather have a chancellor that's there on merit and because they're good at their job. And I'm absolutely dreading Wednesday for the budget.
It's going to be terrible. It's going to be
Yeah, I
absolutely
think
terrible.
I have been enjoying, although it's at midday, PMQs. If it wasn't at midday, I would definitely be doing a drinking game of every time they say 22 billion pound black hole, take a shot, but I would probably be on the floor.
And of course, that 22 billion pound black hole, they never mention the fact that a large deal of it is because they decided on these mega whopping above inflation pay rises for public sector workers, including train drivers who are getting over £70,000 now. They never talk about that, do they? But Amy Jemima, I think this fundamentally, for me, it's really serious. It shows that she is fundamentally a liar. Because I'm sorry, she is lying on the economy and now she's lying about her past. I mean, that's bad to have a chancellor who's a liar.
Yeah, that's kind of the take that I had when I first saw this story. To be honest, the fact that she doesn't have these qualifications would make her just as qualified at her job as the rest of them, because none of them really are. But it's not really about that to me. Here's the fact that she's lied. And so why lie? I just don't understand. I think we've just come to accept that from our politicians, and it's just not good enough. And I don't get the whole lying thing. To be honest, I don't understand. I think she would be she'd probably just get the job anyway, to be honest. Is that just me being naive? I don't know.
Well, the thing is that we accept it from our politicians who are on one side of the aisle. Because it certainly was never accepted from Boris Johnson or from Rishi Sunak or actually from any Conservative politician. Was it, Fleur?
Yeah, no, and it's not just the Conservatives. I mean, people will try and accuse them of it all the time. But things like when Rupert Lowe said that he was going to donate his salary to charity, and everyone's on him like trying to verify it and looking at his all of his finances and trying to find any way to disprove it. But then when Rachel's lying about being an economist, they're not even denying it. They're just trying to sort of push it down and hide it. About the chess thing, that is strange. Now, I can't talk because I don't even know how to play chess.
I don't.
But
I don't. But come on, we're not lying about being chess champions when you came 26th. I mean, look, she's embarrassing. I think she is embarrassing. I think the problem with this Labour cabinet is that they all feel they need to boost their qualifications because they have no qualifications. This is the ultimate Labour cabinet. A cabinet of union officials and public sector workers. Do you know not one senior cabinet member, Amy, has any business qualification whatsoever? Not one.
No, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I think the whole it's hard because I can't see this ever happening, but I think the whole system is time again. This is nothing new to say, but it doesn't work. We don't have any trust in them because we know that they don't have any real qualifications to do real jobs. So I don't know what the answer is, Dan.
The answer is we suffer.
It's definitely worth thinking about. What's the other option? I don't know if my internet's bad.
Yes, no, we've got you. The answer is we suffer, unfortunately, and that is a very, very terrifying answer. Now,
well,
sorry,
being an MP used to be a part-time job that people would go to after their job in the city, and so there weren't career politicians back then. We didn't have people who worked in diversity and inclusion at a council, then becoming an MP like Absana Begum and getting a council house as an MP. So that's what it is. They're representing themselves in this cozy bubble, and they'll talk about the old boys club on the other benches, but they're just as bad, if not worse. Like, they don't have any expertise. They're just career politicians, and they love everything that keeps them in their jobs and them in their bubbles, and it's this cozy world, and that's all that matters.
Indeed. Breaking right now, the MSM silence over Keir Starmer and his big secret grows by the day. Now, can you believe, after the way that they hounded Boris Johnson over his personal life, hounded Boris Johnson's ex-wife, hounded Boris Johnson's current wife, that they seem to be taking, all of our major journalists seem to be taking a complete hands-off approach to the current leader of the country. Now, they want us to forget that Keir Starmer put his personal life right at the heart of his justification for taking money to attend Taylor Swift concerts, for taking money for posh accommodation in Covent Garden. But there are some people who are prepared to talk about this story. And the first to break it was the Bombshells podcast. And we have, of course, Fleur Elizabeth and Amy Jemima with us today. And it was during this interview with Guido Fawkes' boss, Paul Staines, that the information started to seep into the public domain. So we'll get their reaction and hear what they know in just a moment. But first, this is from the Bombshells podcast. Or are you under pressure legally not to reveal more?
Well, we've both been in the game a long time. You know the rules. If you can't stand it up completely, you can't run.
Sorry, we went too early to that. We will come back very shortly to me and Paul Staines. But first, let's go and take a look at the Bombshells interview. Oh, we'll come back to it, but actually, let's have a look at me with Guido Fawkes. Or are you under pressure legally not to reveal more?
Well, we've both been in the game a long time. You know the rules. If you can't stand it up completely, you can't run the story. So we have a name, as do the Mail and the Telegraph. We have a birth certificate, and people have been looking into it. People have been journalists have contacted the family, so it's in play, and a lot of people do know it.
And now here is the Bombshells interview.
During the election campaign, you were hinting a bit about, Guido was hinting a bit about Keir Starmer's personal life, but
we never got the story to fly.
Well, no, more that. No,
everyone
no
was
one
talking
else.
About it.
But no one else was talking about this apart from Guido. Is that because journalists and editors want to stay on the side of the incoming government? Like,
there was a bit of that, and there was a bit of those type of stories you can never prove.
Yeah, libel.
You've got a photographer outside at night time and in the morning, shall we say? So it's very hard.
Like I got him.
Very, very hard to stand up.
Yeah.
And just because everyone knows or everyone says doesn't mean
it's tough.
So we tried it from all different angles, and people enjoy, as Lord Leveson said to me, a mosaic of information.
Yeah,
could put it together, and I think basically a lot of people knew what the Mail and the Telegraph were getting at when they were saying, "Where's Vicky?"
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. But
where's the ring?
Truth is. Where's the ring?
He's still not got it back on.
Maybe he's just putting a bit of weight. It happens.
Maybe he's following Prince William, who also doesn't wear a ring.
Is that true?
I don't wear a ring.
Apparently, it's the traditional thing to do.
Well, I don't wear a watch, so I don't like.
Either.
I think that story isn't over yet.
That story isn't over yet. You were on it first, Fleur Elizabeth and Amy Jemima. Can you tell us any more? What do you know about what's going on, and why is there this MSM silence?
The Bombshells will not be dropping any big bombshells.
You don't want to get sued.
There's rumours, and with the people getting arrested for retweets, I'm a bit scared to say anything too much. But
Yes.
yeah, you know what? I hadn't even clocked until rewatching that he specified, unless you have journalists outside of the door in the morning and in the night, shall we say. That's interesting. But yeah, there's lots of rumors, and what matters is if anything behind these rumors is affecting his job and his role as prime minister, that is when the public should know. But the problem with having a lawyer, a human rights lawyer as prime minister, is he knows the game better than everyone else, and he can push anything down. So that's why I think Guido's been doing a good job of teasing people, but no one wants to go to jail and to take care. So
yeah, and that is the problem. I mean, we've
safe.
literally seen people go to jail for posting tweets or making comments on Facebook. But the thing is, Amy, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he was the one that did make his family part of the conversation, because he took all of these gifts from Lord Ali, including, by the way, designer clothes for his wife. He took the Taylor Swift tickets. We have now seen just this week that Lord Ali broke the rules on at least 4 occasions. Again, the MSM don't seem to want to cover this because it's their guys and they want their guys to do well. But it was actually Starmer that made this a public conversation, because he was the one that brought his family into it.
Well, I think what Fleur said about him being a barrister and him understanding libel laws as really tricky, because the libel laws, even though he has brought his family into the public domain, I mean, in my opinion, it should be sort of the public domain anyway, because he is the prime minister. And when you have something that is going to affect your policies, like perhaps trans ideology being embedded in the family, often you'll find that if you've got a friend or a family member with that kind of ideology around you, and you find it personally difficult to sort of step away from it or separate yourself from it, you'll find it embeds in the work around that person, and it's very difficult to get it out of your, I don't know, the kind of the rules and the policies that you're embedding.
Of course. And I mean, again, there's rank hypocrisy on this from the left, because the left certainly believe that when it comes to their enemies, so Boris Johnson in the UK and Donald Trump in the US, that every single part of their private life is completely relevant. And so for me, a lot of this is about hypocrisy. If we had a rule that the private lives of politicians and public figures were off limits altogether, okay, maybe I'd accept that. But we don't. We can't have a mainstream media that only targets right-wing politicians because of their personal life. The thing that I find so shocking too, though, is that it's like an inside joke. All of Westminster are talking about it, and I find it really unsavory. I mean, I'm certainly an outsider. I don't want to be part of the Westminster elite, but I find it really disturbing that they all joke about something and the public don't know. And it got to the point where Starmer even made a joke about it, referring to temptations during PMQs. Watch this.
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm not sure just at the moment going to something that's labelled temptations is quite where I'd like to go.
Now, to me, Fleur,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, that is such front to think that you are so protected that no one is going to come to you, that you are going to joke about temptations in PMQs when there are all of these rumours. And we saw it earlier from what Paul Steyn said to me about the shape of Keir Starmer's family and all of that. I couldn't believe it. And again, it was only me and GB News that even covered that answer. The rest of the mainstream media just didn't even talk about that answer whatsoever.
Yeah, I didn't register that either. I thought he was talking about the band, the Temptations, but that just shows
Well,
where
the
my
thing
mind
is,
goes.
the thing is, Dawn Butler was talking about the fact that that a Temptations tribute band were
Right,
going to
okay.
be playing at a Black History Month event. And everyone in the House of Commons started laughing because obviously the name of the band Temptations was quite odd. And that's when Starmer then said, oh, I shouldn't be talking about Temptations. So it was all like a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We know what's going on here. Let's have a laugh about it. I mean, I wouldn't say that there been problems in your marriage is a laughing matter anyway, Amy. Would you?
No, and I think it's definitely in the public interest. I do find it a little bit disturbing that so many people do know, like Guido said himself, it's an open secret, and Isabel Oakeshott's discussed this as being quite a broadly known thing.
Yes.
So, and how is it not in the public interest to know something like this and what possibly could be informing policies? And I think these kind of things. I do think they should be in the public interest, but obviously the libel laws are so restricted that actually it's not really worth running with a public interest defence anymore.
No, indeed. No, indeed. Now, look, breaking right now, ITV, or woke ITV, as I call it, has been criticised for apparently breaking its own diversity guidelines. Now, you remember there was a lot of controversy a couple of years ago when ITV was criticised for putting certain lineups of presenters, including the Loose Women panel, that were all white. And as a result, they pledged that they were going to increase diversity across their shows. And I was actually working at ITV at that time, and I know for a fact that lots of presenters were told, you are going to lose shifts because we are now engaging in positive discrimination, which some people think is okay. But today, Loose Women, and it was Charlene White, the ITV News presenter, who posted this picture to clearly make a point. And she said that we'll see you in 10 minutes. But of course, the underlining message from the picture is that the entire lineup of Loose Women were all black women. So there was Charlene White, there was Brenda Edwards, the former singer, there was Judy Love, the comedian who competed on Strictly Come Dancing, and there was Kelly Bryan, the former Eternal singer. Now, I've actually spoken to people behind the scenes at ITV who say, this is not true diversity at all. These are all 4 middle-class black women who live in London, who have a similar cultural history. There's no white woman, but there's also no Asian woman, for example, on the panel. And we know that there are more Asian women than black women in the UK. So let me bring the bombshells back in now, Fleur, Elizabeth, and Amy Jemima. This is a really interesting one, isn't it? Because ITV clearly think, well, for years and years and years, we put lots of white faces on TV. So we want to make a point here. We want to say, here is the all-black panel. But Fleur, I would argue that if you have a problem with there being an all-white panel, why do you also not have a problem with there being an all-black panel, especially given that the percentage of black people in the UK is under 10%?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. And I really, really hate positive discrimination. It's in every single industry. And it is racist if you are excluding people because of their skin color. If this panel of all white or all black women is there because they are the best at their job and they're the most talented and they are the most entertaining, great. But if you're doing it to make a point, then that's just wrong. And like you said, I was actually thinking this earlier today, because there is I believe she's Chinese MP called Yuan, and I was thinking how rare it is to see an East Asian politician. And when we had the new government come in, there were pictures of, like, look at all of these new black MPs. I think Dawn Butler posted one celebrating our black excellence or something. Why don't we see that with East Asian MPs? And, you know, if a white MP dared saying, look at our white excellence.
Well, that's the thing. They would be sacked. They would be sacked. They would literally be cancelled from polite society. And the problem for me, Amy, is I grew up, you know, I'm a little bit older than you, and I grew up in the era of let's embrace colorblindness. And I'm still do. I don't give a damn what color you are. But I just think there should be equality on all of these things. And to me, diversity means matching the population. And of course, we are still a majority white country. But as Fleur says, Amy, it does always feel like there's a particular focus on Black Afro-Caribbean heritage people. And that is not diversity either. If Loose Women was going to have true diversity, surely there should be an Asian person on that panel too. And of course, a white person.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. With Loose Women and ITV, I remember back in the day when it was like really fun. I still watch it back today. Loose Women 2007 to 2011. Those were the like golden years where they won awards, and Loose Women was watched by basically all women in the UK. I'm fairly certain. But now they've just had their foot on the gas with destroying their viewing figures. I'm fairly certain that is right, though, Dan, isn't it? Because
100%, 100%.
It's like they've made the decision. They're just going full ham.
But it's like the go woke, go broke thing. I mean, by the way, I couldn't agree more. And I'm obviously not a woman, but I loved Loose Women over that period. It was un-PC. It was great fun. It was the days of Carol McGiffin, Denise Welsh.
Oh, my favourite,
Yeah, Carol's amazing. And Linda Bellingham, the late great Linda Bellingham, Jane McDonald, Kate Thornton. They were real mates and they really had fun. And the problem is, I was working at ITV through all of that time. I did 10 years at ITV daytime working on the Lorraine show between 2009 and 2019. And I literally watched as the woke mind virus infiltrated that building. And you were completely right, Amy. What they did is they removed all of the fun from Loose Women. And they said, we're going to be serious. We're going to talk about woke issues. We're going to have, have to have a disabled person on the panel this week. And as soon as you put identity politics ahead of talent or ahead of enjoyment, that's when you ruin the entertainment industry. So, yeah, I think no one should watch ITV. I don't. It's awful. Awful channel.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, back then it felt like real life. If you want to be representative of everyone, of the majority of the British public, forget race, forget everything. They really did come from all sorts back then. And most of them were white, but nobody was thinking about that. Nobody was thinking about the color of their skin or anything. People were just enjoying the stuff they had to say, their disagreements, their stories. And honestly, they did feel like real life if you want to be representative of the people today. But nowadays, everyone looks so serious.
Totally. And the thing is, every now and then in the entertainment industry, you do have groups of people that migrate around a particular ethnicity. Not always, but for example, look at the UK's biggest boy bands, Take That and the Beatles. But then also look at Destiny's Child in the US. Look at the So Solid crew. Look at all of the K-pop bands. Not every single entertainment piece of entertainment has to be diverse. Sometimes it's actually fine to watch people from a particular ethnic group. And I think the issue is that ITV now overthinks everything.
Yeah. Well, look at the Olympics. Is anyone complaining that the majority of the track athletes were black?
Of course not.
No. And also, would we ever go to India and complain that the panels on their show are only Indian people with brown skin? No, we wouldn't do that. It's this obsession. I tend to think that is not it is not a popular sort of criticism with the viewership. People watching daytime TV are not watching this and thinking, gosh, why am I not represented on there? If I was watching Loose Women, I'm not thinking, why is there not somebody from the Northeast on there? And why is there not somebody with my hair color and my eye color? Just sit back, relax. If you're watching daytime TV, that's what it's for. It's not that deep.
Exactly. Have fun.
Yeah.
Have
And
fun.
sorry, Dan,
Yes, come in, Amy.
can I just say, I wonder what's going on in their minds. The people, the women that they've got, who they've sort of rolled out to be the front faces for whatever quota reasons to make sure everyone is of a certain race. What's going on in their minds? Because I know from personal experience, and when I've worked in male-dominated areas, getting jobs that I've been really proud of, I really thought that I'd got that on, and I really hope I did get it on merit. But when I found out that there was a quota that was incentivizing hiring females, my whole kind of
Devastated.
morale was crushed.
Yeah.
It was I was crushed because I thought, what are people looking at me thinking I'm only here because of my gender, sex rather? But
Totally.
yeah, I wonder what's in their minds.
Totally. Well, I think it depends, but certainly when it comes to Charlene White, she's an activist. Charlene White is one of those activists, and she loves it. She thinks it's great. So a lot of this is being driven by people like her. But look, do stand by Bombshells, because there's been a big development in the assisted dying debate with Esther Ranson lashing out at the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, for his decision not to back the assisted dying bill. So we'll discuss that in just 1 minute. But first, every day, subtle changes occur in our bodies, often going unnoticed. It's called inflammaging, a chronic low-grade inflammation that deteriorates our health as we get older. It's more than just a sign of aging. It's a key contributor to health issues like cardiovascular diseases, dementia, and depression, and physical decline. It continuously weakens the body's resilience, turning minor infections severe and impacting mental health and cognitive function. Inflammaging significantly diminishes both quality of life and independence. Proper diet, exercise, and sleep can only get you so far. So that's why I take Clean Bean by Verso. It contains ingredients targeted to fight off and help prevent inflammaging. Research shows these ingredients clean out damaged cells in the body that affect healthy cells, reduce inflammation, protect against oxidative stress, and improve conditions like cardiovascular diseases and neurological disorders. I've taken Clean Bean for a long time now, and I've noticed less joint pain, increased energy, better mood, clearer skin. I can think better, I don't get sick as often. These are all benefits of reducing inflammation. Plus, Verso ensures transparency and quality by publishing third-party testing results for each batch they produce, so you know you're getting exactly what you pay for. So click the link in the description in YouTube or Rumble, or head on over to buy.ver.so and use the coupon code Outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. To repeat, that's www.buy.ver.so/Outspoken. Use the coupon code Outspoken. But now, back to the show. And Esther Ranson, who is dying of terminal cancer, has lashed out at Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, saying that he is forcing her to fly to Dignitas to die alone after he said he would vote against the legalizing assisted dying legislation. This was, of course, a change on his previous position. Let me bring the Bombshells back in now. Amy, Jemima, and Fleur Elizabeth. Fleur, I know you're very passionate about this one. What do you make of Esther Ranson's comments and her fury that Wes Streeting, as Health Secretary, has made this decision?
She kind of reminds me of Veruca Salt from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, stamping her feet and saying, like, I want my own way, and I want everything my way now just because I want it. Whereas Wes, you know, he's the health secretary. He knows what the state of the NHS is, and he has said that palliative care and the NHS are not in the right state in this country to bring this in right now. Even though he is personally supportive of the principle of assisted suicide, but Esther just sees what she wants, and she wants the choice to end her life how and when she wants it. And I'm sure she is mentally competent enough to do that. She's said that she's joined Dignitas. But what that doesn't account for is how many people may not be mentally competent, may not be coerced, may not have access to high quality palliative care, and all of these things that you can't properly safeguard against don't apply to her. So she's looking at it through a very narrow vision. But I really respect Wes for changing his stance on it. Like he voted for it in 2015, but he's got the guts to say, I've changed my mind and I'm looking at the state of things in this country, and now it's not the right time to do this.
And it's so important. I mean, look, you're much closer to it, Fleur, but I just can't see there's any way this is going to pass now that Wes Streeting has says, look, the NHS clearly can't cope. Amy, I have a bit of an issue with the Esther Rantzen thing, though, because I don't know if you remember this, but I'll play it to you. She appeared on my GB News show during the COVID pandemic, my former GB News show, I should say, during the COVID pandemic, and made it clear that she wanted the NHS to deny life-saving treatment to anyone who would not be vaccinated with the COVID jab. So I'll get your reaction in just a moment, but this is a reminder of what she said at the time.
A vaccine or a booster, then you can decide not to go to hospital however ill you get. And that way, that is your right.
So you would leave the unjabbed at home to die if they had a heart attack, if they suffered from a stroke?
That's their choice. If they're unjabbed, if they take the decision they're not going to use the medical evidence, follow the science, as we say, recognize, because what the boosters do is not only protect you, they protect other people because you transmit the infection far less.
Yeah. Although you can still transmit even if you are triple jab.
So, Amy, I just find, given that previous position, it's very odd that Keir Starmer has put her on some sort of moral pedestal and said, I'm delivering this vote for Esther Rantzen, given Esther Rantzen wanted to deny life-saving treatment to people who wouldn't follow her view on the COVID jab.
It is utterly self-centered. It's such a spoiled, self-centered way of looking at things. And like Fleur said, I'm very proud that Wes has actually been quite courageous with this, because I think we can all think of a time or a personal or a personal moment where we've known someone that could do with assisted dying, but has had to go through with it a normal way because it's not available. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, you can understand that it is important that we keep the laws that we have around assisted dying. For the benefit of the more vulnerable people who could have been it used against in a very sinister way, as you're seeing in Canada.
Well, indeed, and it's really important that you mentioned that, actually, Amy, because I've got this video from Stephen Edgington of GB News, who interviewed a disabled woman in Canada who said that she was actually offered euthanasia. So this is the problem, and it's why a lot of high-profile disabled people are saying, no, this could be used against us. So have a look at this.
You're not going to give me the equipment we need to live, but you're just going to help us die? Like, what is this? I served 10 years with Canadian Armed Forces and then 10 years as a para-athlete for Canada. And as I am waiting for medical equipment and an elevator for my house to be able to transfer, it's been over 6 years now. It's still not there. And the agent treating my file told me one day when I told him on the phone that I just couldn't go on anymore. It was just, unbearable, and it's just too hard. And he told me, if you really think you cannot keep going on and you find it's too hard, you have the right to die. So there I am fighting all this time to trying to just get the proper equipment to just want to be able to live a life with the minimal of autonomy and independence. I understand I have still all these limitations, but it's ridiculous because from the states of things, I could probably be dead in 2 weeks.
Fleur, I mean, an absolutely heart-rending interview there from Stephen Edgington. And you can understand why Tanny Gray Thompson, for example, has come out against the assisted dying legislation.
Yeah, the first time I watched that interview with Stephen Edgington, I was crying because this is a veteran, this is a Paralympian, this is someone who has done amazing things with her life. And just so easily a doctor who takes an oath to protect life will say to her, you can die in 2 weeks. And, if in certain circumstances in Canada, it can be 48 hours. So it's just, what value do we put on human life at this point when, what is it? A chairlift or death? That's it. That's your choice. Obviously, our NHS is in a shocking state. And how quickly is it in Canada? It was 5 years before it was taken from terminally ill only to what they've got now. And just the slippery slope is slippery and steep. But there's heartbreaking stories.
Yeah, no, indeed. And we have to care about the sanctity of life. Well, look, we've covered it all today. Thank you, Bombshells, Fleur, Elizabeth, Amy, Jemima. Their brilliant podcast, which features interviews with the likes of Guido Fawkes, the aforementioned Stephen Edgington, and Toby Young, is available now on YouTube. Great to have you both on Outspoken today. But
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
But coming up in the Uncancelled interview, P. Dina on disastrous news for Prince Harry with a shocking new twist in the bid to see him deported from the US for drug use. So you can go and register right now, www.outspoken.live. That is our membership section where you get half an hour of extra content every single day. But before I go today, I wanted to tell you about a very special episode coming tomorrow. I'm going to break my silence on the Lucy Letby case. Letby was convicted of 7 murders and 7 attempted murders of babies in intensive care. No one saw Letby do a single thing. There is no CCTV. There is no DNA evidence. Former Conservative Cabinet Minister Sir David Davis believes there is a 90% chance Letby is not guilty.
The police were potentially already concerned about the value of this statistical evidence.
The statistical value of the chart is pretty much zero.
You could take any nurse and build a similar chart which looks exactly like that if you only look at the deaths which occurred when those people were on duty.
And this is why it's so easy to wrongly convict a nurse if the whole establishment comes down looking for you to be the easy person to blame.
When you look at the babies in the Letby trial, you've got babies who were born as early as 27 weeks gestation. The babies were nowhere near as stable and healthy and strong as was presented during the trial.
That's a very special edition of Outspoken tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Please do hit subscribe right now on YouTube and Rumble. I promise to keep fighting for you, and I look forward to seeing you on the after show in just one moment with the brilliant royal commentator, P. Dina.